My son's casket hadn't even left the church before Alyssa, my daughter-in-law, turned to me in front of everyone and said, "I need you to sign over the house this week." Just like that. No tears. No shame. I stood there stunned, clutching my grandson's hand, while she already planned to take everything he ever left behind. But what she didn't know was, I did something she'll never forget. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others, what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? Share it in the comments below. Thanks. I stood there, clutching a damp tissue in one hand and my grandson Josh's tiny fingers in the other, as they lowered my son's casket into the ground. People around me sniffled. Some sobbed. A few just stared into space like they didn't know what to feel. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The kind of pain I felt doesn't come with tears. It just sits in your chest like a brick, making it hard to breathe. And then, right there, with dirt barely covering my boy's coffin, Alyssa leaned in close, her perfume sickly sweet, and whispered, "Tyler wanted me to have the house. You know that, right? We should start the transfer this week." I turned and looked at her, thinking I must have misheard. But no, she smiled like she was asking me to pass the salt. Cold, casual, like my son's death was just a formality and now it was time for her to collect. I didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, not out of agreement, but because I was afraid if I opened my mouth, I'd scream in front of the priest. Later that day, in the reception hall, she acted like nothing had happened. She greeted people, hugged relatives, even laughed once, loudly, like she was at a baby shower, not her husband's funeral. I caught her texting during a slideshow of Tyler's childhood photos. Her phone lit up over and over. I couldn't help but glance. Marcus. The name kept flashing, over and over. She smiled when she saw it. My son's ashes hadn't even cooled, and she was already talking to someone named Marcus. My stomach turned. That night, after everyone had gone home and Josh was asleep in the guest room, I sat at the kitchen table and just stared at the walls. This house wasn't some fancy property. It was a small 2-bedroom, middle of a quiet street. Nothing special. But it was mine. It was where I raised Tyler, where he painted those horrible superhero murals in his room when he was 10, where we spent every Christmas since his dad left. And now, Alyssa wanted to rip it out of my hands like she deserved it, like being married to my son gave her claim to everything I built. I thought about saying something to her that day. I really did. But I knew better. Alyssa wasn't the type you could argue with when emotions ran high. She'd flip it, spin it, turn it into some story where I was the villain. And there was Josh. That poor little boy already lost his father. I wasn't going to add fuel to his chaos. But in that moment, I decided something. If she wanted war, I'd give her silence. If she wanted my house, she'd have to walk over my cold, breathing body to get it. I just needed to play along, nod, act like I was confused, like I needed time. And while she thought I was softening, I'd be digging, watching, waiting. Because nobody disrespects my son at his own funeral and walks away with his legacy. Not while I'm alive. The morning after the funeral, the house was so quiet it hurt. Josh was still asleep, his little Spider-Man socks sticking out from under the blanket on the couch where he'd passed out watching cartoons. I walked past his sleeping body and stood outside Tyler's old room, my hand resting on the doorknob. I hadn't opened that door since he moved out after marrying Alyssa. It had always been too hard. Now it felt impossible. But something pulled at me. Maybe it was guilt, maybe anger, maybe just the need to feel close to him for one more second. I opened it slowly. The air smelled faintly like old aftershave and dust. His posters were still up. Some band he loved, a worn-out college pennant. I stepped inside, and my knees nearly buckled. His desk had notebooks stacked like he'd just walked out. There was a small lamp, the same one I bought him in middle school when he used to be afraid of the dark. I sat down on the edge of his bed and looked around, feeling like I was trespassing in a museum of someone I hadn't finished grieving. I spotted his old laptop on the shelf, dusty but intact, and next to it a small digital voice recorder. Tyler used to use it to practice speeches in college. I picked it up, pressed the play button without thinking. Most files were static or random phrases. But then I hit one, dated 6 months ago. His voice came through, quieter, slower. If Anything ever happens to me, he said, don't let Alyssa have everything. She's not who she pretends to be. Please, Mom, just look after Josh. I froze. The room spun for a second. I played it again and again. It wasn't long, but it was enough. Enough to tell me he knew something. Enough to tell me Alyssa's claws had been out long before he died. I sat there holding that recorder like it was a piece of him. My hand shook. I didn't cry. I felt rage crawling under my skin like fire ants. She was already trying to erase him, and here he was, still trying to protect what mattered most. I put the recorder in my pocket and walked out of that room with a different kind of energy. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was hunting. I called Alan, the family lawyer, and asked if he had Tyler's will. He said Alyssa had filed a copy already, a few weeks before the funeral, and that the original was probably in her possession. That didn't sit right with me. I knew my son. He would have told me, or at least left a copy with Alan directly, like he always did with important things. But Alan said there was nothing else on record, no backup. Alyssa's version had a typed signature, no video verification, no witness list. My stomach churned. I thanked him and hung up, staring at the wall like it had answers. Alyssa had moved fast, too fast. She had filed a will, lined up a claim to the house, and started laying the groundwork before Tyler's body was even cold. I had one advantage. She thought I was passive. She thought I was just an old woman who didn't know how to fight back. But she had no idea I had her voice saved now, her lies, and soon I'd have more. This wasn't about the house anymore. This was about Josh, about Tyler, about making damn sure she didn't walk away with the last piece of my son's life, like it was some souvenir. So I made a list. People to talk to, things to dig up, and one by one, I'd start collecting the truth she thought she buried. Because now I wasn't just grieving, I was watching, waiting, and ready to strike. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay in bed listening to the sound of the house settling, the occasional creak of the floorboards, and every breath Josh made in the next room through the baby monitor I'd pulled from storage, not because he needed it, but because I did. That voice memo from Tyler played in my head over and over again. His voice low, cautious, like he was scared even recording it. Don't let Alyssa have everything, he said. She's not who she pretends to be. It haunted me, not just for what he said, but because he never told me in person. What had he been protecting me from? Or worse, what had he already decided I couldn't fix? By morning, I'd made up my mind. If there were more of these memos, more breadcrumbs, I'd find them. I powered on his old laptop, and surprisingly, it still booted up. It was password protected, of course, and for a second I felt stupid for not knowing it. Then I typed in, Josh 2009, and the screen blinked to life. A mother knows. I opened his email first. Most of it was routine, receipts, job applications, messages from Josh's school. But then I saw a folder labeled Personal in all caps. Inside were drafts, dozens of them, letters he never sent. One titled, To Mom If Something Happens, made my hands go ice cold. I clicked it open. It was short, unfinished. I don't know how to say this out loud. Alyssa's different now. I think she's seeing someone. I don't want to believe it, but she's gone a lot. And there's this guy, Marcus, who keeps texting her. I checked her phone once. He called her baby. I'm trying to work it out for Josh. I don't want to break his world. But if anything happens to me, promise me you'll fight for him. Don't let her take him from you. I sat there staring at those words until my vision blurred. My son had been scared, suspicious, and trying to protect his child without tearing apart his home. That kind of quiet strength, it killed me. I printed the letter, saved everything to a flash drive, and made 3 copies of the memo from the voice recorder. If Alyssa wanted a game of proof and paper, I was going to bury her in it. But I also knew I couldn't do this alone. That night, after Josh went to bed, I called the only person Tyler had kept in touch with regularly besides me, his college friend Theo. I'd met Theo a few times years ago, always polite, smart, and way too into computers. Tyler used to joke he was part hacker, part therapist. Theo picked up on the second ring. I introduced myself, and his tone changed immediately. Soft, careful. I heard about Tyler, he said. I'm so sorry. He was one of the good ones. I told him I needed help, and I didn't dance around it. I told him about Alyssa, the memo, the emails, all of it. There was a pause. Then he said, "Send me what you have. I'll look into her." He didn't ask why. He just said he'd get back to me soon. That kind of loyalty told me more about Tyler than any letter could. As I closed the laptop and packed away the documents, I heard Alyssa's voice in my head again, cold, demanding, entitled. "We should start the transfer this week." I smiled, but it wasn't kind. She had no idea what I was building. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was a rescue mission, and I was coming for everything she thought she already owned. 3 days later, Theo called back. His voice was different, tighter, clipped, like he was trying to measure every word before he said it. "You were right," he said, "about all of it." I stepped out onto the back porch, making sure Josh was still inside watching his cartoons, then closed the screen door behind me. "How bad?" I asked. Theo sighed. "Her texts with Marcus go back over a year. They used a messaging app that deletes conversations, but she wasn't smart enough to wipe her backups. I recovered over 70 screenshots." He paused, like he wasn't sure I could handle it. "Some of them are explicit. A lot are just her venting about your son, complaining about how boring he was, how she felt stuck. She even joked once that she'd get something out of this marriage if it kills me. That one sent a chill down my spine." Theo wasn't done. He found photos, hotel check-ins, receipts, tagged social media locations that overlapped with Marcus's, even though Alyssa had told Tyler she was at book club. There were texts about a plan. One of them read, "Once the will's through, we can finally move in together. He has no clue." I didn't say anything for a long time. My hands shook. I wanted to throw something, scream, set fire to the lies she built around my son. But instead, I just asked, "Can you send me everything?" Within 10 minutes, my inbox lit up with a folder named Alyssa Evidence. I clicked through slowly, piece by piece. Every message was a knife. Every photo felt like watching someone spit on my son's grave. She didn't just cheat on him, she built a second life behind his back, planned a future with another man while calling herself a wife and mother. And the worst part? She was doing it all while slowly trying to erase him. I called Alan, the lawyer, and asked a pointed question. Would a will be valid if we proved the person filing it had a clear conflict of interest and possible intent to defraud the estate? He told me it wouldn't be easy, but if I had proof she manipulated documents or was acting in bad faith, it could be challenged. He asked if I had anything. "You'll have it tomorrow," I said. I spent the rest of the night printing out emails, organizing the files Theo sent, and backing everything up twice. Once to the cloud, once to a USB that I hid behind Tyler's old dresser drawer. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Alyssa. She'd come over to pick up Josh for the weekend, but she was still in the house, moving like she owned the place. She knocked once on my bedroom door without waiting for a response and pushed it open. "Just checking if you've talked to Alan yet," she said, voice syrupy sweet. "I really think it'd be best for everyone if we wrapped this up fast. Josh needs stability." I stared at her. "You're right," I said calmly. "He does. That's why I'm going to make sure everything is handled legally, properly. No shortcuts." She smiled like she'd already won. "Good. I knew you'd come around." Then she walked off like it was her house already. But she didn't know I'd already dug up everything. She didn't know Marcus's name was about to hit every page of this story. And she didn't know that I wasn't just trying to protect my house anymore. I was building a case so ironclad she wouldn't even be able to lie her way out of the ashes. Because I wasn't just holding evidence. I was about to burn down the fake life she built with it. The next morning I woke up before sunrise, dressed in silence, and packed every piece of evidence Theo had uncovered into a manila envelope marked urgent. Josh was still asleep, curled up with his stuffed bear, and I made a quiet promise to him that I wasn't going to let his mother destroy the only piece of stability he had left. I drove straight to Alan's office and handed over the envelope without a word. He raised an eyebrow, but when he started reading through the messages, the photos, and Tyler's unsent letter, his face shifted from curiosity to fury. "This changes everything," he muttered, flipping pages faster now. This isn't just grounds to contest the will. If we can prove she was planning this while Tyler was alive and manipulating him, hell, there could be criminal implications. I didn't flinch. Good, I said. I want every legal block possible placed on this house, today. He nodded, picked up the phone, and started making calls. I left with a stack of documents to review and a new fire in my chest. But I wasn't done yet. On the drive home, I called my insurance agent and filed a temporary freeze on any property transfer, citing a potential estate dispute and fraudulent will activity. That put an automatic hold on any ownership change for at least 60 days, which meant Alyssa couldn't touch the house even if she tried to rush a sale. That was the first real win. When I got home, Alyssa was already in the driveway with Josh, smiling like she hadn't tried to steal everything from me 2 nights ago. She handed him off with her fake warmth and asked, "Did you happen to talk to Alan yet? Just trying to plan next steps." I smiled back, all teeth. "Yeah, we talked. Things are moving forward. You'll get an update soon." She didn't ask more, just waved and walked back to her car, phone already in her hand. That's when I saw the notification on her dashboard screen as she started the engine. New message from Marcus. Tell her it's already listed. My stomach dropped. I waited until she pulled away, then went inside and opened my laptop. I didn't even need Theo this time. A quick Google search and there it was. My house, listed online under a fake LLC name using an out-of-state agent. I'd never heard of. The photos were recent. She'd taken pictures of the living room and kitchen without me noticing, maybe during the last visit. The price tag was outrageous, like she was trying to cash out fast. I clicked on the agent's name and called the number. "I'm calling about the listing at 194 Prescott Drive," I said. The woman on the line responded quickly. "Yes, it just went live yesterday. It's a beautiful home, staged and everything." I clenched my jaw. "It's not for sale," I said. "I'm the legal owner and this property is currently under probate dispute. That listing is fraudulent. Remove it immediately or I'll see you in court." There was silence on the other end, then a stammered apology and a promise to look into it. I hung up before she finished. My hands shook, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was rage. Alyssa had crossed a line she couldn't walk back from. That evening, I waited until Josh was asleep and walked into Tyler's room. I sat at his desk, pulled out the photo of the 3 of us from that last Thanksgiving. Tyler in the middle, Josh on his lap, me behind them with my arms around both. It hit me how hard he'd tried to keep it all together, how much he'd swallowed to protect his son, even while his marriage rotted from the inside. And now Alyssa was trying to erase him entirely, sell the home that held every memory of who he was, but not on my watch. I wasn't just keeping the house. I was turning it into the one place her lies couldn't touch. And the next time she tried to smile in my face and play innocent, she'd learn the hard way that this grieving mother wasn't broken. She was just getting started. The moment I saw Alyssa's fake listing for my house, I knew I couldn't just fight her in court. I had to hit her where it hurt, publicly and without warning. Legal routes were slow and quiet, but shame was instant, and she'd built her image on perfection. So I planned the dinner. I told her I wanted to make peace for Josh's sake, invited her and a few close relatives over for a small gathering. Nothing fancy, just food, some wine, and a chance to move forward. I even told her she could bring Marcus if it made things easier. She looked surprised for a second, maybe suspicious, but she said yes. She probably thought I was finally cracking, folding under the pressure. I spent the next 3 days preparing everything. I had the documents Theo uncovered printed in color and bound in a folder, the voice memo queued up on my phone, and a flash drive loaded with photo evidence in case anyone needed extra convincing. I even arranged for Alan to swing by toward the end of the evening, not as a lawyer, but as a family friend, just in case things got heated. When they arrived, Alyssa was glowing, like someone who'd already imagined herself the winner. Marcus looked younger than I expected, cocky, underdressed, and clearly clueless about the storm he was walking into. Josh ran up to hug me as soon as he walked in, and I held him longer than usual. He didn't know what was coming, and I hated that he was even in the middle of this, but I had to think bigger. I had to protect his future. Dinner was awkward, full of fake small talk and forced smiles. I let Alyssa talk, let her brag about big changes coming soon, watched her sip wine like she was finally getting everything she wanted. I waited until dessert. Everyone had a slice of pie. Some were chatting casually, and that's when I stood up and said, "Before we wrap up, I have something important to share. Something Tyler would have wanted you all to hear." The room quieted. I hit play on the voice memo. Tyler's voice filled the room, shaky, serious. "If anything happens to me, don't let Alyssa have everything. She's not who she pretends to be. Please, Mom, just look after Josh." The silence that followed was brutal. Alyssa's face dropped, wine glass frozen mid-air. Marcus looked confused, then nervous. I didn't stop. I handed out the folder to each person at the table. Emails, texts, photos, proof of the affair. Proof of the planned sale. Her messages calling my son pathetic. Her flirting with Marcus while Tyler was still alive. Her jokes about getting the house one way or another. I let the paper do the talking. Marcus stood up halfway through reading and said, "You told me he was abusive. You said he hit you." Alyssa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He stared at her, then at the photo of her and Tyler and Josh at Christmas, and walked straight out the door without another word. Alyssa stood there trembling, her face drained of color. "You set me up," she whispered. "No," I said. "You did that yourself. I just brought the receipts." She stormed out, leaving her slice of pie untouched and the room filled with stunned silence. A few relatives looked down. One of them whispered, "I had no idea." Alan stepped in quietly, nodded at me, and left. I cleared the plates slowly, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. That night, after everyone left, I sat in the living room with Josh asleep in my lap and thought about Tyler. I imagined him somewhere, watching, finally knowing that I'd heard him. I didn't just expose Alyssa, I shattered the fantasy she built. And it wasn't over. The legal part was next. But now, for the first time since that funeral, I felt like I had my power back. She came from my house with a smirk. I answered with truth and fire, and I wasn't even done yet. The morning after that dinner, I found Josh sitting on the stairs, knees tucked to his chest, holding the family photo I kept on the living room shelf. He looked up at me with swollen eyes and asked, "Why was Mommy lying to everyone?" It hit me like a brick to the chest. He had seen more than I thought, heard more than any child should. I sat beside him slowly, heart aching, and wrapped my arm around his small shoulders. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "grown-ups make choices that hurt people, but that doesn't mean it's your fault or that you're not loved." He stared down at the picture and said nothing. That silence, heavier than any argument, followed us the rest of the day. I called Alan and asked him to initiate the custody paperwork. I wasn't doing this out of spite anymore. Josh needed stability, and Alyssa had proven over and over that she cared more about control than care. She tried to sell his childhood home, lie about his father, manipulate the system for money. I wasn't going to let her keep using him as leverage. Alan moved fast. He filed for emergency temporary custody, citing emotional instability and potential neglect. The voice memo, the documented fraud attempt, and Marcus's statement, he emailed a sworn note the night after he walked out, were all included in the filing. Within 24 hours, I got a call from Child Protective Services. They wanted to conduct a home visit, speak with me, and evaluate Josh's living situation. I cleaned every inch of the house, not to fake anything, but to show that this place, this home, was where he belonged. When the agent arrived, Josh answered the door and pulled her inside like she was a new friend, chatting about his toys, and asking if she wanted cookies. The woman smiled, but watched everything, quietly taking notes. She spoke with me for over an hour. I told her the truth, not every gory detail, but enough. That his father had passed, that his mother was in the middle of a legal battle over property and had been dishonest about critical things. That Josh needed calm, not chaos. The agent didn't promise anything, just said she'd follow up soon. That night, Alyssa showed up unannounced, pounding on the door like a storm. "You think you're gonna steal my son too?" she screamed. "You think you can just take everything?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, blocking Josh from the shouting. "I'm not taking anything," I said. "I'm saving him from you." Her face twisted. You manipulated him, played him against me. You've always hated me. I didn't argue. I just said, I have proof. I have custody paperwork. And after what happened at that dinner, you're lucky anyone even lets you see him unsupervised. She laughed bitterly, shook her head, then walked back to her car, muttering something under her breath about lawyers and revenge. But I didn't flinch. I stood there, still as stone, watching her drive away, knowing every word she said now came from panic, not power. Josh peeked through the window a few minutes later. "Is Mommy mad?" he asked. I knelt beside him. "She's confused right now, but everything's going to be okay, I promise." And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. I had the truth. I had the law. And now, I had the only thing that mattered. Josh, safe in the only home that ever truly loved him. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Alyssa was unraveling, and I was no longer on defense. I was leading the charge. The day after CPS visited, I was folding laundry when Theo called again, his voice faster than usual, like he couldn't get the words out quick enough. "I found something," he said. "A draft of Tyler's will, dated just 2 weeks before he died. It was never signed, but it's detailed, and it's in his personal email. He clearly wrote it with intent." I dropped the towel in my hands and grabbed a pen. "What does it say?" He paused, then read from the document. "In the event of my death, I want full guardianship of Joshua to pass to my mother, Marie, if Alyssa is deemed unfit or if I'm not around to ensure his safety. I do not want Alyssa to inherit the house. This property was purchased using inheritance from my father and should remain in the family line through Marie. Under no circumstance should the house be sold without Marie's approval." I couldn't breathe. He had seen all of this coming. He knew her better than I had dared to admit, and he really tried, to stop it from happening. Theo emailed me the file, and I forwarded it immediately to Alan, who confirmed it could strengthen our argument, even though unsigned. "Intent matters, especially with everything else we've built," he said. "This document might just crush her claim completely." That evening, I printed the draft and placed it next to Tyler's framed photo on the mantel. Not because it was over, but because I needed to remind myself that I wasn't just fighting for Josh or for the house. I was finishing something my son started. 2 days later, Alyssa filed a counter-motion through a new lawyer claiming parental alienation and emotional manipulation. Her statements were a mix of half-truths and complete fabrications, painting herself as a victim and accusing me of poisoning Josh's view of her. But what she didn't realize was that her credibility was already cracked wide open. Alan submitted the draft will, the memo, the email backups, the house listing fraud, and Marcus's affidavit, all neatly tied into a case that now looked more like identity theft and manipulation than a custody dispute. The judge didn't issue a final ruling yet, but he granted us temporary full guardianship of Josh until the full hearing in 30 days. That same afternoon, Alyssa tried calling me. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was shaky, different now, like the cracks were finally showing. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean for things to get like this. Can we just talk? I miss my son." I sat with that message for a while. I wasn't heartless. I knew what it meant to miss someone. But missing Josh didn't undo what she did to Tyler, to this family, to me. That night, Josh and I made dinner together, mac and cheese, his favorite. As he stirred the pot, he looked up and said, "Do you think Daddy's proud of us?" My throat tightened, but I smiled and nodded. I know he is. Because now, even without a signature, Tyler's voice was louder than ever. And Alyssa? She wasn't dealing with a grieving old woman anymore. She was facing a mother with evidence, with custody, with every intention of burning down every lie she ever told and making sure she could never rewrite the story of the man she tried to erase. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old carpet, and I sat on the bench outside the courtroom with Josh's backpack at my feet, filled with his sketch pad and snacks, like we were headed to a library instead of the hearing that would decide if he stayed with me or went back to a woman who saw him as a bargaining chip. Alyssa walked in late, wearing a tight blazer and sunglasses like she thought this was some kind of celebrity trial. But her face looked different, drawn, pale like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her lawyer walked a step behind her, already flipping through files like he knew what was coming. Inside the courtroom, everything moved in slow motion but hit like a freight train. Alan opened with the draft will, explaining its presence in Tyler's personal email, the timestamp, the consistency with other documents, and its reflection of Tyler's true intent. Then came the fraud claims, proof of the fake house listing, Marcus's signed affidavit admitting to the affair, and Alyssa's plan to sell the home while the estate was still in probate. Even Alyssa's texts referencing her desire to cash out and move on weeks before Tyler's death. Alyssa tried to deny it, but every denial crumbled under evidence. Her lawyer looked increasingly uncomfortable, flipping through his binder like maybe a magic page would save her. When it was her turn to speak, she leaned into the dramatics. Tears, claims of stress, saying Tyler was controlling, that I had always hated her, that she only acted out of fear of being pushed aside. But when the judge asked why she had attempted to sell a house she didn't own, listed under a fake LLC, her voice cracked. I thought it would be mine, she said. Tyler told me. But she had no proof, no text, no email, nothing but her own word, and after everything she'd done, that word meant nothing. Then came the final blow. Alan played the voice memo. Tyler's words echoed through the courtroom like a ghost with purpose. If anything happens to me, don't let Alyssa have everything. She's not who she pretends to be. Please, Mom, just look after Josh. Alyssa sobbed openly now, her hands shaking as she buried her face in a tissue. But nobody moved. To comfort her, the judge asked her lawyer if he had anything else to add. He said no and sat down, his shoulders already slumped. The ruling didn't take long. Temporary custody was converted to permanent guardianship. The will was ruled questionable but irrelevant due to Tyler's clear verbal and digital intent. The house transfer request was denied, permanently frozen pending further review, and a fraud investigation was quietly recommended to the DA's office. Alyssa stood there as the judge read his decision, eyes red, face blank, mascara streaked down her cheek. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Josh. She just stood there like a statue, watching everything fall apart. After court, outside in the parking lot, she approached us one last time. "Please," she said, voice hoarse. "Can I say goodbye?" I looked at Josh. He nodded, small and unsure, and she knelt down, whispering something in his ear I couldn't hear. He didn't say anything back, just hugged her with one arm, then turned and walked toward me. Alyssa stood up, wiped her eyes, and whispered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "But you planned it, and that's why you lost." She walked away without another word. Back home, I made Josh grilled cheese and let him draw at the table while I sat on the couch holding the signed court order in my lap. It wasn't joy I felt, it wasn't victory, it was relief laced with grief, like closing a book that should have ended differently. But at least now, I had the final chapter in my hands. And Alyssa? She had to live with the one she wrote herself. It's been 4 months since the court hearing, and the house feels different now. Not emptier, not haunted, but still, like it finally stopped bracing for a storm that already passed. The mail doesn't come with threats anymore. No lawyers pounding on the door, no Alyssa's perfume lingering in the air after another one of her fake visits. It's just me and Josh now, and the rhythm we've found together. He started sleeping in Tyler's old room by choice, said it makes him feel close to his dad. I didn't argue. I left everything how Tyler had it, except I added a new bookshelf and let Josh fill it with whatever he wanted. Comics, puzzles, a framed photo of him and Tyler fishing last summer. Some mornings I catch him talking to that photo like his father's, listening, and part of me believes he is. Alyssa hasn't shown her face since the custody ruling. Her parental rights weren't terminated, just restricted to supervised visitation, but she hasn't scheduled a single one. Maybe it's shame, maybe she's waiting to find another angle, but whatever it is, I'm not losing sleep over it. She built her world on lies and thought she could bulldoze through mine, but I stood up. I didn't crumble. I turned every weapon she used against her and made sure the truth stood taller than her ego ever did. The house, the same house she tried to steal, has become a haven again. I've repainted the kitchen, planted fresh flowers out front, even replaced the old curtains. Tyler always said we're ugly, but I didn't touch the doorway where he used to mark Josh's height with a pencil every birthday. I can't bring myself to erase it. That spot means something. It's proof he was here. He loved, he cared, even when no one else saw it. Sometimes at night, I sit in the living room with the lights low, holding that voice recorder in my hands. I haven't deleted the memo. I never will. I play it once in a while just to hear him, to remind myself that he trusted me to finish something he couldn't. And I did. I protected Josh. I saved our home. And I made damn sure Alyssa's version of the story never became the truth. Josh started calling me Mom now, something he came up with on his own. He says it's because I'm like a mom and a grandma at the same time. I cried when he said it, quietly, while he played with his toys on the floor. Not from sadness, but from something heavier. Relief, pride, love. The kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. Last week, he brought home a school project, a poster about family. In the center was a picture of him and Tyler, and beside it was a drawing of me with a big heart around it. The caption read, "My grandma is my hero because she keeps our house safe and always tells the truth." I hung it on the fridge, right, where everyone could see. This house, the one Alyssa tried to claim like a prize, is now a fortress of memory and protection. Every wall tells a story she tried to erase. Every room holds a piece of the sun she never deserved. And me? I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm just steady, like the floors beneath our feet, like the roof over Josh's head. The house is quiet again, but it's not silent. It's full of the right voices now, the ones that matter, the ones that last.